Let's talk about how one single, everyday object didn't just change the world, it literally built a new one from the ground up. And yeah, it all started with a humble light bulb. No, really, just stop and think about that for a second. Imagine your entire day just ends when the sun goes down. No late night homework, no scrolling through videos, no reading a book in bed. For almost all of human history, that was just how it was. When darkness fell, the world pretty much shut down. So let's jump back in time and see what that world, a world lit only by fire, was actually like. Okay, so before electric light, your only options were things that burned. You had candles and oil lamps, which gave off this dim, flickery light and were a massive fire hazard, especially in houses made of wood. Now, in the big cities, you had gas lamps, but they were hot, they were smelly, and they were definitely not something you'd want burning inside your house. People desperately needed a source of light that was safe, reliable, and actually bright. And this is where our main character, a young inventor named Thomas Edison, steps onto the scene. But he wasn't exactly the straight-A student you might be picturing. Edison was born in 1847, and get this, he had a really hard time in school. His teachers thought he wasn't all that bright, so his mom, who was a teacher herself, pulled him out and decided to homeschool him. And honestly, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to him. He completely fell in love with science, filling his family's basement with experiments. By the time he was a teenager, he was working on trains and had mastered the telegraph, which was like the high-tech internet of its day. But here's where Edison had a truly game-changing idea. He didn't want to be some lone genius tinkering away in a basement. Instead, he built the world's first industrial research lab in Menlo Park, New Jersey. He called it an invention factory. His goal was to hire a whole team of experts just to invent things, systematically, for regular people. This team-based approach to creating technology, it was totally revolutionary. And the number one problem his amazing invention factories set out to solve was the biggest one out there, creating a practical, affordable electric light. The entire massive challenge really came down to one single tiny part: the filament. That's the little wire inside a bulb that actually glows. You see, for years, every material that scientists had tried would either melt instantly or just burn out in a matter of seconds. Finding the perfect, long-lasting filament was the absolute key to unlocking electric light for the entire world. And Edison's team was just relentless. They didn't test 10 materials or even 100. They tested thousands. I mean, they tried everything you could possibly imagine. Cotton threads, bits of paper, they even tested hairs from the beards of the guys in the lab. It was just this long, slow, grinding process of constant failure. You know, this whole process perfectly captures Edison's most famous philosophy. He believed that invention wasn't about some magic flash of genius. Nope. For him, it was 99% perspiration, just the hard work of trying, failing, learning, and doing it all over again. And then, finally, in 1879, it happened, the breakthrough. And the winning material was a simple piece of bamboo thread that had been baked until it was pure carbon. They put it inside a glass bulb, turned on the power, and it glowed. And it kept on glowing for over 1,200 hours. That was it. This was the filament that would finally light up the world. But here's the thing. Inventing the perfect light bulb was really only step one. I mean, a light bulb is pretty useless if you've got nowhere to plug it in, right? The science behind it is actually pretty cool and simple. First, you pump all the air out of the glass bulb. That creates a vacuum so the filament can't just burn up. Next, an electric current flows in. Then, that current has to squeeze through the super thin filament. That struggle creates a ton of resistance and intense heat. And finally, that heat makes the filament glow white hot, creating light. It's a beautifully simple design. So to solve that whole plugging it in problem, Edison had to invent an entire system from scratch. He designed and built the world's very first central power plant, the Pearl Street Station in New York City. Then, his teams literally dug up the streets to lay a whole network of underground wires, creating the first ever power grid to deliver electricity right to people's homes and businesses. But this led to one of the most famous rivalries in science history, the War of the Currents. See, Edison's system used direct current, or DC, where electricity flows in just one direction. But another brilliant inventor, Nikola Tesla, championed something different, alternating current, or AC, where the current rapidly switches direction.
The huge advantage of AC was that you could easily boost its voltage, which meant it could be sent over incredibly long distances with way less power loss than DC. Edison fought hard for his system, arguing that DC was safer. But in the end, efficiency won the war. Tesla's AC system became the standard for power grids all across the globe. It's kind of funny, though, because the DC that Edison loved so much is still what we use in all our batteries today, from your phone to electric cars.
So when we look back at all of it, what was the real, lasting legacy of Thomas Edison and all of his work? Well, the impact was immediate, and it was absolutely massive. Suddenly, with reliable light, factories could operate 24/7, brightly lit streets made cities way safer at night, and the whole idea of nightlife, going out after dark to a restaurant or a show, was born. The 24-hour city became a reality, and it totally changed the way people lived and worked. And you got to remember, Edison wasn't a one-hit wonder. His invention factory also gave us the phonograph, which was the first machine that could record and play back sound. He developed the motion picture camera, basically kicking off the entire movie industry. He also improved the telephone and created much better storage batteries. The man was a creative force of nature. How much of a force? Well, over his lifetime, Thomas Edison was granted 1,093 U.S. patents. Just let that sink in. That makes him one of the most productive inventors in all of human history. But maybe his most important invention wasn't an object at all. Maybe it was his method, that invention factory model. The idea of bringing teams of dedicated experts together just to innovate is the exact blueprint that modern research labs and the biggest tech companies in the world still use today. Edison didn't just invent things, he invented the process of modern invention. Thomas Edison saw a world that was stuck in the dark, and through incredible persistence and amazing teamwork, he lit it up. He showed us all that a big problem is really just an opportunity for a brilliant solution. So that leaves us with one final thought. What problem will you solve?